Hi, I'm Morgan. Welcome to More Travel Please. This is a budget travel channel. My boyfriend Harrison and I travel the world as cheaply as possible. So when we first started traveling long-term in 2018, I spent forever looking for ways to stay places for free all around the world, and we actually started out by volunteering, but we quickly realized that volunteering left us no time to actually enjoy traveling because we also had to work on our videos at the same time and also do the volunteering duties. So we luckily quickly found a better way to travel the world cheaply, which is pretty much the most important cheap travel hack that we have ever found and the pivotal reason that we can even continue traveling: house sitting. Harrison and I have now completed over 18 house sits all throughout the world in major cities like Paris, Edinburgh, London, and countless others. So I'd say we're pretty qualified to do this guide. We've been house sitting for over 2 years now. So yeah, this is going to be the ultimate one-stop shop house sitting guide for all of your house sitting questions and needs. I know that I would really appreciate something like this back when we first started house sitting, so I'm here to provide that to the world. This is going to be part 1 of I think 2, and I even asked people on our YouTube community page and on our Facebook and Instagram for questions, so people have sent them in. By the way, definitely make sure to subscribe so that next time you will be here to ask any questions that you want to hear about whatever I'm talking about, and also follow my Instagram and Facebook and all that. This is going to be a long one, so if you want to skip to a specific part of the guide, then just go to the description. I'll have timestamps for different sections. Okay, so let's just get into part 1 of the ultimate house sitting guide. Let's start with the pivotal question: what is house sitting? House sitting basically means that you will be a live-in caretaker for somebody's home and pets while they're away, maybe on vacation or a business trip or whatever. So you usually take care of their pets, but you just take care of whatever you agree to take care of. So maybe mow the lawn, maybe you take in the mail, shovel the driveway, whatever you agree on. Of course, every house sit is different, so it's hard to say exactly what you will need to do because it always changes. The exchange is that you get to stay somewhere completely for free. I mean, I mentioned earlier that we got to stay in Paris, London, etc. for free. I mean, and those were house sits over a month at a time. I mean, it's a crazy exchange when you think about it, because you're not just staying in an Airbnb or hotel, which could be a really small, cramped space with limited amenities. I mean, you have your own home to yourself. So you'll have a kitchen, you'll maybe have a backyard, you'll have several rooms, a living room, TV, Netflix, all the luxuries that you get from living in your own home, but you get to do it while traveling or somewhere else. House sitting gives you an opportunity to have a completely immersive experience and live like a local rather than a tourist. Plus, if you are an animal lover, it's like a dream come true. For us, house sitting has been invaluably worth it, to the point where we often are in disbelief of our lives, but we'll get more into that. So let's move on to the next section. So who can be a house sitter? This is going to be really quick to talk about because anybody, literally anyone, can be a house sitter. I mean, it would help you if you had experience. That would help you probably get more house sits, but you don't even have to have experience. I think you have to have a clean record, but aside from that, I mean, there are people who house sit as a couple. Obviously, me and Harrison do that. Or you can be a couple, meaning just you and one other person, your sister, your friend. I've seen people house sit as families even. People who are retired, people who are quite young. Anyone can house sit. Why do people want house sitters? Well, it's called house sitting, but I would say about 90% at least of the time, people really want pet sitters. When people go away on business trips or on vacation or something and they're thinking of who's going to care for their pets when they're gone, oftentimes they would have to resort to putting them into a kennel, which can be extremely expensive. And I found that a lot of homeowners are very concerned about the price of the kennel, but they're actually oftentimes just more concerned about the level of care that their pets would receive in a kennel. They want their animals to be loved, to be relaxed, to continue their regular routines, maybe their training, to be fed what they want them to be fed, to have their exercise every day. I don't want to drag kennels too much, by the way. I know a lot of animal-loving people work at kennels and put a lot of care in, but it's just not the same as having a live-in pet sitter. For some pets, just having their owner leave them can be quite traumatic and stressful, so having somebody there to kind of be a sort of replacement for their owner can be super helpful and therapeutic. I mean, if you have pets or you just love animals, I'm sure you can understand. I think about my own cat. Harrison and I have a cat. She's 16 years old. She's getting a little old now, but she lives with my mom, and my mom takes great care of her, so whenever we're not home, she has that bond with my mom still. Things aren't that different. If we were to bring her to a kennel, she might seriously have a panic attack or something. It would break our hearts to go away and know that she's in an extremely stressful and upsetting situation. So if we didn't have my mom while we were traveling, we would definitely look into getting house sitters ourselves. So pet care is definitely the number one reason I'd say why people have house sitters, but there are lots of other valid reasons as well. Another big one is home maintenance. For example, earlier this this year we had a house sit in Ottawa, Canada that actually had no pets, but it was in winter and it snowed every single day, so we were needed to like shovel off the roof, make sure that the pipes don't burst by using hot water frequently, getting the like squirrels out of the squirrel traps, just stuff like that. Sometimes people have farms need maintained or just grass that needs mowed or whatever they need done. Sometimes they can't just leave their house. I mean, imagine if we didn't do that house in Ottawa, the roof could have caved in if we weren't there to shovel it off, so that's another reason. Besides pet care and maintenance, another big reason why people want house sitters is to help ensure the safety of their home. That might sound dramatic, but it's not. Harrison's meme is actually a world traveler as well. She's been to like probably, I don't know, every single country. She travels all the time. But one time she left for a week or maybe less than a week, which is a really short trip for her, but it was enough time for people to have noticed that there was nobody at the house, so she did actually get robbed. It's amazing what a difference it can make just to have somebody living in your home while you're away, to have the lights on at night, to have maybe a car in the driveway, for people to notice that there's people living there. I mean, you even think of like Home Alone. The villains in the movie were like watching all the houses to see who went away for Christmas vacation so they could rob them. We've been asked a few times, why don't people who want house sitters have their family or friends house sit for them? But if you think about it, they often have their own lives, they have jobs, they might have kids. It's not really feasible to ask them to adhere to your pet's or your home schedule and to like stop living their own life. And oftentimes people don't live near close family or friends, so they can't really ask like an acquaintance to do it. I think the only reason something like house sitting can really work is because both parties are benefiting. It's not just done as a favor. How to know for sure that you actually want to be a house sitter? This is really important because before going into anything, you have to seriously ask yourself if you actually want to become a house sitter. Just like alchemy, house sitters and homeowners have to provide each other with an equivalent exchange. You can't just take and not give what you promised. If you don't like pets or taking care of homes or having some level of responsibility when traveling, then you're going to hate house sitting. This is not the same as a regular vacation where you just stay in a hotel and you don't have to worry about anything. You have legitimate responsibilities. If you're like Harrison and I and you love pets and you really enjoy staying in homes rather than hotels when traveling and you accept the maintenance that comes along with that, then it's not going to feel like work at all and you'll love it. But if you're expecting just a free ride and to give minimal effort, then you're going to hate it. You can look at it in a way like you're going to a beach house with a dog. I mean, it's just like that. You're just taking care of the house and you have a dog while you're on vacation and it's really fun. But if you're the type of person who went to a beach house with a dog, but you didn't actually get up to walk the dog and you never cleaned the beach house, then maybe it will feel different than what you're expecting. Envision what your daily life would be like, the time you have to spend on home maintenance, on pet care, and the time that you'd actually get to explore or to like do the traveling part. And then think about if it's worth it for you and only proceed if you're okay with that. So how do you become a house sitter? Well, you apply online through a website. There's a bunch of house sitting websites to choose from. There's Know My Door, there's Mind My House, House Carers, Cat and Flat, etc., etc. But from my own experience and what I've seen, the biggest and best one to use is Trusted House Sitters. Now, here's a good time to say, we're not sponsored at all. We have less than 6,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Nobody wants to sponsor us, never mind Trusted House Sitters, unless Trusted House Sitters, we're here doing your work for you for free, so please sponsor us. But as of right now, we are not sponsored, unfortunately. This is all my own opinion. But yeah, from what I've seen, Trusted House Sitters does seem to have the most amount of house sits on there in the most amount of countries, and you have probably the most amount of chance to actually get a house sit through that. So how it works on Trusted House Sitters basically is that homeowners post listings of their house sit. You can apply to the listing and then hopefully you get chosen and they accept you to be the house sitter. Then you guys talk, smooth out the details, and eventually you arrive and do the house sit, and it's as simple as that. To get started, you do have to make a profile, and unfortunately it's not free. It does cost money to set up a profile on Trusted House Sitters. It's about $129 for a year's worth of subscription. It is a lot, but I mean, if you think about it, if you house sit just for one weekend throughout the year, then you are making your money back because it's money that you didn't have to spend on a hotel or Airbnb. And for Harrison and I mean, the $129 that we spent for a first year subscription was like nothing compared to what we got out of it, because last year and the year before we house sat for over 6 months. So that was half a year we didn't have to pay rent each time. So obviously it was so invaluably worth it to pay for our subscription to Trusted House Sitters. That being said, I do actually have a code that you can use to get 25% off. This sounds like I'm sponsored. This sounds like I'm getting something out of it. I'm not. I mean, I am. If you use my code, then I get a couple of free months of Trusted House Sitters, but literally anyone on Trusted House Sitters gets a code that they can give out, because I used somebody's code too to get 25% off when I first signed up for Trusted House Sitters, so might as well use it, right? So just letting you know, link in the description if you want to get 25% off Trusted House Sitters. I do want to mention also that besides the house sitting websites, you could also use Facebook, because there are some Facebook groups for house sitting, but I find that it's just not as reliable. There's not a lot of options on there. It's hard to find one through the Facebook groups. So I'm going to go through the rest of this guide pretty much assuming that you're going to use Trusted House Sitters or a similar house sitting website. So next we're going to talk about how to make a good profile. Setting up your profile is really easy. You can choose, like I said earlier, to either sit as one person, as two people, as a family, whatever you want to do, and then you can start to add your details on your profile. Talk about yourself. Why do you want to house sit? Your experience. If you don't have any experience, then maybe just talk about times that you have taken care of pets or taken care of your own apartment or something like that. Talk about what kind of a house sitter you'd be, a little bit about yourself. You definitely don't want to skimp on this, because having a good profile can seriously be a make or break for you when it comes to people choosing you to house sit. We've actually gotten feedback before on our profiles from people that we've house sat for, and they said that through our descriptions they felt like they got to know us and they could see that we're truly animal lovers, so the profile is very important. Make sure to upload a bunch of great pictures of yourself, preferably with some pets, but definitely smiling, good quality. You know, when you look for house sits, you're going to want to look for ones that have good pictures, so you have to provide that as well. They want to see what you really look like. And on Trusted House Sitters, you do have the option to also upload a video, and I would say that if you can and if you're comfortable with talking on camera, you should definitely do that. Even one that's as quick as like, "Hi, I'm Morgan, I want to be your house sitter." Something like that, because then it proves that you're a real person. Because this whole thing, house sitting, is really about trust. So if you can go that little extra mile to prove that you are real, that could really help you. House sitting is not a job per se, because there's no money exchanged, but treat it like it is when it comes to your profile. So use correct grammar. Don't be overly robotic, but don't be so casual to the point where you come off as flaky. You'll also need to do a background check and get your ID verified. And then once you've done all that, then congrats, you've filled out your profile. Now, let's talk about how to pick the house that you want to apply to. Basically, how it works on Trusted House Sitters and most house sitting websites is that homeowners will post a listing which includes pictures and includes a description about their location, about their pets, about their home, and what they expect out of their house sitters. To find the house sits that are available, you can just go on the front page and you'll see all the newest sits, or you can choose to search by country, by the length of the sit, by the date of the sit, by what animals are there. You can even use the map to find your sit, so it's very simple. House sits can last one night up to years. The shortest one that we had was just a weekend, and the longest was a month and a half. So before you choose to apply to any house sit, the first things first, which is that you need to make sure that you are actually legitimately interested in the house sit before you apply. Of course, you can change your mind once you talk to them and maybe they mention a detail that doesn't work to you, or you get a bad vibe or something, but in general, just apply to sits that you're pretty much prepared to take if they offer it to you from the information that you have already there. Because obviously it's just messed up to waste people's time. I've actually talked to several homeowners who said that people have flaked out on them, so just don't be that person. What helps with this is to make sure that you actually read their listing thoroughly and carefully. So now I'm going to give you some actual legit real advice from my personal experience. So not to drag Harrison, my lovely partner in crime, but a big difference between him and I when it comes to planning is that he does not read between the lines. He assumes the best in everybody in every situation. So what I'm going to tell you is not to assume the worst necessarily, but rather don't assume anything at all, ever. Don't assume that they're going to give you a ride from the airport. Don't assume that you can use their bikes or their Netflix or anything else that they own unless they explicitly tell you that you can. Don't assume that you can leave the house for enough hours to go exploring. Don't even assume that their listed Wi-Fi speed is correct. We learned that one the hard way. Many times. I'm saying this because out of personal experience, when you assume certain things out of people, you are oftentimes let down, and your idea of what's going to happen can be super different from what's really going to happen. Just give yourself a sense of realism when you're applying to these house sits, because if a ton of things seem off but you're assuming the best, then just don't assume that. I also think it's best to read between the lines and get as much information out of a listing as possible before even applying for it. I'm going to give some examples. So a really huge one is on Trusted House Sitters, it shows the location of the house sit. But the thing is, the location is not always exactly accurate because it just chooses the next largest big city or town. So you could have a house sit that's listed in New York City, but really it's on the outskirts of New York City. So you can't just assume that it's going to be like right near Central Park or something. So when choosing a house sit to apply to, that's something Harrison and I always look out for, location, because it's so important, especially when we're traveling overseas because we don't rent a car. So we have to know how far away we are from like the grocery store, from the train station, from any locations that we want to visit. I always try to sort of figure out through hints on their profile, where do they actually live before I even apply. When you're looking for houses to apply to, you basically want to look for whatever matters most to you. Harrison and I also specifically pay attention to the Wi-Fi speed listed on the profile because we need to use internet to work. Without Wi-Fi, we can't get money. But the thing is, you can't even entirely trust it because we've had several house sits that have high-speed Wi-Fi where the Wi-Fi was actually pretty much unusable. It was so bad. If I see a house sit that says basic Wi-Fi, I know it's not even worth applying to. But even if it says high speed, I will more likely apply to that, but it's still know in the back of my head that's something I need to ask about later. Something else that's very important to look at when choosing a house sit to apply to is what they expect out of the sitter. Do they have an extremely rigorous schedule? Do they need you to wake up at 5 a.m.? Do they need you to walk the dog for miles and miles a day? Because maybe that's all worth it for you, and maybe it's not. And I also want you to be realistic about what you actually want to do, because maybe you're blinded by a house sit that's in an amazing location, but if you look at what's expected of you and you have to spend 12 hours of the day mucking out a horse stall or something, and you're thinking, oh, I don't care because it's in such a great location. Well, if you think about it, you're not really going to be able to experience that location because you're busy doing what you're supposed to be doing. So be honest with yourself with how much work you actually want to put in. Something else that's super helpful when choosing a sit to apply to is when you read the reviews, because people can leave reviews on the house sit. So that's always extremely beneficial to see what other people have experienced there. Something that Trusted House Sitters used to do, which I really wish they still did, but I don't think they do anymore, is you used to be able to see how many people had house sit for somebody, and then you could see how many people actually left a review. And that was amazing because I knew that if a bunch of people had house sit for them, but only one or two had left a review, that usually is a red flag, and I wouldn't apply to that house sit. It's a red flag because when you leave a review for your homeowner, like say I went to house sit, and then after the house sit's done, I can write a review about how my house sit went, and then they can see what I wrote, and then they can write a review for me. What people are afraid of happening is that people will retaliate. So if you write a negative review, they're afraid that the homeowner will write the house sitter a negative review back in retaliation. So I knew that whenever I saw that a bunch of people had house sit for somebody, but almost nobody left a review, that's a big red flag. But you can no longer see that, unfortunately. But if whenever you're watching this, if that feature comes back, then that is one of the most helpful things to look at on Trusted House Sitters. Alright, so now you know you want to apply to a house sit. Now let's talk about how do you give a good application. Right now, they don't know you, so you have to try to prove that you're trustworthy. So talk about yourself. Tell them your experience house sitting, why you want to be a house sitter, how you will handle their house sit, how you will treat their pets, all that. What I think really helps to bring success with your application is to, again, make sure that you actually read thoroughly their listing. Then you can reference small details from their listing in your application. So like if they mentioned a reference to like a video game or a sport or something, and you have that in common with them, like you like that video game or sport, then definitely add that into your application. There's got to be something you have in common with them just off of their listing. Even if they say that they're going to South Africa for vacation, and you maybe even haven't been, but you could be like, oh, I would love to go to South Africa. I bet you guys are going to have such a fun time. Or you could say, oh, I've been to South Africa. Are you going to Cape Town? Something like that. Like there's got to be something you can bring up to connect with them on some level and to show that you have actually read their listing. Also, compliment their pet. like always. And house sitting nowadays is just becoming more and more popular. I've seen it myself. The rise of application numbers for each listing is going up and up and up, which means more people are applying. So anything that you can do to set yourself apart would really help. And I think, at least for me, what works is just being honest and like just super detailed about what I'm doing, who I am, which also just helps to breed trust between you and this other person. So I'd say this video has gone on long enough, so I'm going to end it here, and we're going to continue the ultimate house sitting guide in part 2, which is coming up really soon. So please make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any videos coming up, and please give this video a thumbs up and share it if you liked it and found it useful. And please comment below if you really want to become a house sitter, any questions you have, or if you are a house sitter, talk about your experience. I'd love to chat. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye!